Good morning. My name is Joe Sanroma. I am with the American Honey Producers Association and the Louisiana Beekeepers Association. Overall, this year has been challenging nationwide, and for running a business, it has had its difficulties. With the pandemic and shutdowns, beekeepers had impacts as well. One example I'll give, most of the commercial beekeepers use the H-2A programs, and flying the migrant workers to or from the U.S. was difficult. A lot of beekeepers could not send their workers home and carried a heavy payroll to carry them, and the extra fuel and other indirect costs associated with those workers. And then when they could fly them home, they went through numerous cancellations until learning to use a charter plane, which was expensive as well. There are a couple of government programs that are in place with COVID challenges and the hurricane aftermath. So I'm going to start with the COVID program, which is called the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or as FSA calls it, CFAP 2. There is a CFAP 1. We want to use CFAP 2. That's the one for us. In the spring of 2020, the American Honey Producers Association visited with Congress, and they requested what we wanted in the bill for assistance during the COVID pandemic. We shared some ideas like using ELAP and things in that nature there. But in the end, we were not included in the first CFAP because honey isn't perishable, and we couldn't show a 5% decline in sales in early 2020. Generally, beekeepers don't sell honey at that time of the year, so that was next to impossible to do. But we were successful on the second go-around. Before I dive into this, I'm going to tell you that if you do want to apply, the deadline for this is December 11th, 2020. They started it September 21st, 2020. So you have plenty of time to apply if you want to get money on that, through this. And the way this works is they want the amount of honey sales for the year 2019 on wholesale honey. And the sales are self-reporting. They're going to ask you to get off your tax return, or you could just add up all your invoices. But when you do apply, be sure to have your total figure for 2019. Then what they're going to do is they're going to take the amount of sales for that year and multiply in a range of 8.8% to 10.6%, which is factored on how much you sold for that year. If you sold more, the percentage is on the lower side, which is 8.8. Not to worry, the 8.8 is if you sold over 1 million pounds, and I don't think a lot of you guys are in that category. Fact of the matter, you can pretty much figure it on 10% because it starts reducing down towards the 9s after 500,000 pounds. So if you want a rough estimate, you can use 10%. Sequestration will not apply in this program, and there is a payment limitation of $250,000. You can go to your FSA office, or you can file online at farmers.gov/CFAP/apply. I'm going to repeat that. farmers.gov/CFAP/apply. Now, I'm going to suggest going to the FSA office, but some of you guys might want to apply online. It's kind of nice having someone leading you by the hand. So, but if you do go to the FSA office, have that figure for 2019 with you. Next program I'm going to get into that we've been working on is the Emergency Livestock Assistance Program, or better known as ELAP. This program is for the losses due to CCD or adverse weather conditions, like flooding. And you have to have a complete hive loss. That means everything, the box, supers, and everything, to apply for the adverse weather conditions. So if any of you flooded out and have pictures during the hurricanes, and I know we've had quite a few hurricanes, and some of you guys have been impacted, you can take advantage of this program to help you out. This program was first introduced in 2008. Beekeepers are self-reporting their losses with documents, and eligible losses will receive a payment. Now, the documents that go along with this is your BR lists, and they have some forms called the CC 934 and a CC 870. The CC 934 is the request for payment. Be sure to say that. And the CC 870 is a form indicating that you are in the criteria for CCD, which is some vague definitions like loss of field bees and whatnot. If you apply and you check those off, then you have CCD. All that is self-reporting as well. Be sure to save both documents. I'll be saying that several times in here. And then your eligible losses will receive a payment. You can get, if you feel you have enough in and you want to get payment, you can declare payment anytime during the year. So you can get paid monthly, or you can get paid every 2-3 months, or you can get paid biannually, whichever is to your liking. They've been a little slow at times. As soon as you sign that 934, they're supposed to pay you in 30 days. If they exceed it and it's not your fault, they're supposed to pay a percent, interest. I only know one beekeeper that got interest from lateness. So at this point, it's not common to be paying interest, even though that they should be. So again, I'm going to say save the 934 because that shows that you applied that, it's such date, and if you exceed 30 days and it goes way out, we could use that. We cannot help you if you do not have your CC 934 and the CC 870 saved. Also, this program is nationwide. Consistency between offices and procedures may or may not be consistent. This has been a problem programmatically, by the way. So in my view, the state associations need to communicate with the state offices to establish a good relation with the beekeepers and hopefully provide a consistency in the end. LBA has been communicating with the Louisiana State Office. In 2018, in an appropriations bill, the cap was lifted. Now, what that cap was, it was a $20 million cap across the board. And if at that time we could not get payments frequently, we had to wait till the end of the year when the program was finalized. And if the beekeepers exceeded the cap, they factored us down across the board so that we were at cap. So you'll hear, if any of you go to the National Association meetings, you'll hear Eric Silver mention as a haircut. That's another terminology that we'll use on that. So that cap has been lifted, so we no longer have that. So that's good that we don't have to go through that. We get paid frequently, and we get our whole amount instead of a reduced amount, because they find ways of narrowing this down, believe me. Also in 2018, in the Farm Bill, the payment limitations of $125,000 per entity or beekeeper was removed. In return, they wanted more auditing in the program. I'm going to go over that at the end of this. Also in 2020, what happens is when you have a Farm Bill, FSA has to come out with a final rule, and they will sometimes do final rules every single year or so on. So these things here I'm going to talk about, which we're not very happy with, can change because it's a little different than a law. It fluctuates. from final rule to final rule. So in what they came out with 220 was they reduced the colony payments from $140 to $110, and the hive loss from $258 to $190. Now, what a colony is the colony itself from CCD. A hive is the whole box, supers, brood nest, comb, everything. So you have to have a complete loss to get that, and the normal mortality rate is not factored when you have adverse weather conditions and you lose your whole hive. So they've reduced those down. We don't agree that a hive is worth $190. I'm sure most of you agree with me on that. So there's a lot of work to do with that, which we will continue on. They also changed from reporting our losses from 30 days to 15 days. So when you bring your list in, if there's anything that's past 15 days, you are not getting payment. So make sure that you are reporting and your dates are 15 days from that point or less, or you are not getting any payments. They're very strict on that. Also in 2019, they changed the normal mortality rate at 22%. At the beginning of the year, they did that. That's another one we don't agree with. It should be back down to the 15%. So we have a lot of work to do there. We'll keep you posted, and we'll continue working on those things there. So through the year, it was a mixed bag, but I think we fared well. Definitely a lot of work to do. Definitely some areas that need to be improved can be improved much more easier because they're just in the final rule. So that's what I mean by fair. We'll continue working on that. Now, during 2020, the FSA offices have been bogged down on sending relief payments out to these different industries. That's at CFAP and other programs, to like dairy, cattle, and whatnot. So they put ELAP at the back of the line, which we were not happy about. So a lot of payments were held up. So after communicating with our state office, ELAP payments have been resumed and several payments have been issued. And I'm going to wrap this up with letting you know that FSA has audited for the year 2017. Now, I've seen the audit report. It mainly pertains to the inconsistencies of the offices. There's a few things on the beekeepers. I don't need to go in depth on that. But they do have a panel dedicated for this, so they are dead serious on this. They took 3 states for that year to do this. All they can check is on your paperwork. So again, I'm going to re-emphasize to save your paperwork that you give them and keep it in a file. The next issue that I want to go over is the biological control on tallow. Some of you guys have been following this. For the ones that have not, I'll give you a brief rundown. A flea beetle and later on a knock-to-it moth is in APHIS for approval to be released. What this flea beetle and knock-to-it moth does is it reduces our tallow trees or eliminates them. Tallow is a big honey crop in Louisiana and other states in the South. It is also a place where beekeepers use to keep their bees through the winter and do their spring work. So this is a big problem for the beekeepers in the South. So in 2018, when we learned about these biological controls, the American Honey Producers Association and the Louisiana Beekeepers Association campaigned against the release of these biological controls. We sent 7 state association letters and over 50 letters from beekeepers and various packers across the country, which to me is very phenomenal. I've been lobbying for a long time, and I have never seen this many letters. So this was a great job. It should provide a lot of leverage to have this many letters in there. Also, HPA sent a rebuttal against the environmental assessment. Now, what the environmental assessment is when a biological control goes through review underneath NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, they are supposed to go through an environmental impact study. What APHIS has been doing is they've been going through an environmental assessment instead, which is less costly. They just dig up some information from the computer or different science papers and just throw in assessments, and hopefully no one pays attention, and that's how the biological control gets released that quick. But they're supposed to be putting it into an environmental impact study, which is costly because they have to use environmentalists, attorneys, different professionals, and it also has a much more stringent review process, like going through the Endangered Species Act review. That's very hard to get out of that, making sure there's no endangered species that's going to be affected. So you can imagine that's a tough one to come out. So ours was actually in that review in 2018 and most of 2019. A lot of biological controls that have been challenged gets terminated when it goes into the environmental impact study process because of the length. It takes years and cost. So, but somehow at the beginning of this year, we found out that APHIS had pulled it out of the environmental impact study and was going to put it up for public comment, which could result in a release. So the American Honey Producers Association had a conference with APHIS on this, and they said it's going up for comments at the beginning of 2021, but not necessarily for release. It was to be for release, not for release, or to release one and not the other, or the other and not the other. So that's an area that we can work on right there, that comment. We have since updated the state association letters, and we've met with Congress on this. We have also started a dedicated task force on this issue. So with that, I'm going to end my talk.